Back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and I love to pipe in my comments about cards.
Huh.
That's what I think. Huh. We have a fantastic show for you today.
Huh.
We have a fantastic show for you today here on Card Talk.
Ted, do you know that the viewers know the episode before you give
Let's not talk about what I do and do not know.
Okay. I just
there's a very a very small gap of what that is, honestly. So
okay, we're not talking about that.
We could get through that conversation really quickly.
Yeah.
If there happens to be some things that you know that I don't know, but it's not worth our time. You know, the listeners want to listen to us talk about cards.
Right.
I guess.
Yes, talking about cards is the thing that we do.
It's the thing that we do. And that's what we're going to do. And I'm really excited because we have a fantastic show for everybody today.
I know. Grant is off being a grandfather. Great job, Grant. Not that he had anything to do with it, but hey, good job, Grant. Way to go. If you see Grant online, make sure you congratulate him. It's awesome to hear that he's an old man now.
His army of people continues to grow.
He's got more people in his family than you can shake a stick at. But for anybody who is interested, you can follow along with us. We have a blog in case the podcast is not your thing. You can go over there at cardtalk2018.com and you can see what Matt is going to write about Pippin. Pippin. I see. I ruined it already. I'm sorry, Ted.
It's okay.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. They can supposedly see the title of the card.
I know. If you want to support what we do here at Card Talk, you can join us at patreon.com/cardtalk2018. Goes into helping us support hosting fees and swag and all this stuff. If you're going to join anytime now, you missed the deadline for the swag this year, but you're always eligible for next year's swag and definitely helping us out with all the things that are required. We actually just rolled over our yearly subscription for the blog, so that's coming out. So anyways, the point is that your help helps us help the community.
Help us to help you.
Right. Much like the card today, if you're going to build a Hobbit deck. Ted, what card are you going to pipe in and talk about?
It's Pippin.
Oh, I'm so surprised.
I know. Everyone's shocked. I didn't want to give it away fully, but whatever. So we're talking about Pippin today. He's from the Shadow in the East expansion. Pippin, it's the ally version of Pippin. The Tactics ally version. He's got a 2-cost, 2 willpower, 0 attack, 0 defense, and 2 hit points. He's, of course, unique. He's got the Hobbit trait. He has the following text that says, Pippin gets +2 attack while attacking an enemy with an engagement cost higher than your threat. He also has a response. After you engage an enemy with an engagement cost higher than your threat, ready, Pippin. Kapow.
Kapow.
David, you are our resident Hobbit expert. Not that I don't ever play them or play heroes that are that traded, but you tend to play thematic or even just Hobbits.
I play a lot of Hobbits.
Hobbit archetype decks that are focused around that. So I'm going to really defer. I definitely have some comments, but I really want to hear your initial review since you've probably played this version of Pippin more than me, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I put this version of Pippin in any Hobbit deck, really, that has the tactics, access to tactics. It's this version of Pippin, as long as you're not playing the hero. So let me make sure that I'm clear here, because I need to take a deep breath because there's a lot to say.
Okay.
Is that
David's getting all hot and bothered by Pippin.
Maybe not that. Maybe not like that. But the hero version of Pippin, of the lore Pippin, where you get to draw a card, is phenomenal.
Oh, not the Spirit version?
No, not Spirit Pippin. Spirit Pippin sucks. So, but the lore version of Pippin from the Black Riders is great. And so the reason why that lore version is great, and this is not a show on lore Pippin. If you want to go see lore Pippin, we have a show on lore Pippin.
We did a show on lore Pippin.
We did a lore show on Pippin. Oh wait, no, we did a show on lore Pippin. But what makes this is the classic conundrum, right? Like, do you play Hero Gandalf or do you play Ally Gandalf? Do you play Hero Treebeard or do you play Ally Treebeard, right? And so here's the thing. I think that this is the harder decision of all of those, where you're playing like Hero Faramir versus the Ally Faramir, right? Like, I think that this is this particular version is the more challenging version to decide between, because Hero Pippin gives you that consistent card draw doing the hobbit-y thing, right?
Like his card draws. A lot of people play him for his card draw.
Just for his card draw. Like, that hero does not need to go into a hobbit deck. It just needs to draw you cards. But this hero in a hobbit deck is great because you need that attack, and what you're doing is already in the hobbit deck, you're already building around that lower engagement cost thing. And so you really need to make sure that you include hobbits that can do that low engagement cost thing. Like, that's what you're trying to do. So, like, Pippin in that low engagement cost thing, this version of Pippin is great because the attack bonus that you get, that's what I'm really trying to get at, is great. Hobbits are not known for their attack. What they're known for is kind of ganging up on stuff, right? Like,
you need allies to make up for that attack power, and this version of Pippin helps you do that, because he's a bargain, because you're getting 2 cost for 2 willpower off the bat
in tactics. So you already have the maximum amount of willpower in tactics. Right. If you look through all the tactics characters, 2 willpower is the most, except for tactics A1. So you're already at max tactics. Yep. You can't get any more.
And then you're getting his double duty of readying,
right,
and the 2 attack bonus, which is what you need to compile in those decks.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, is that, and he's unique, so you can only have one of him out at one time, but if you're building a hobbit deck, I would suggest that it's probably a harder decision to choose which version of Pippin you're going to play than if you were building Ents and trying to choose which version of Treebeard to play, or building Gondor and which version of Faramir to play. You know what I'm saying? Like, given everything consistent, I think that Pippin provides you the hardest decision about which version to play, as ally versus the hero version.
Yeah. I'd say if you're, he tends to fit in the decks where if you're maybe optioning to use the hero Falco in your Hobbit deck to give you access to lore, and he's sort of Falco, or maybe Lore Bilbo, and then that kind of frees up your Pippin uniqueness problem.
Yeah, and Falco as an alternative to Lore Pippin is reasonable. I don't want to say it's great, but it's reasonable if you because you can do that. So continue.
What's really interesting about Lore Pippin, about Tactics Pippin, is you almost want to play him with himself, because you expect Lore Pippin to be increasing the engagement cost of all your enemies by, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can't run them simultaneously unless, and I just thought of this just now, you could, in theory, use the Messenger of the King contract on this version of Pippin, right?
Right.
And make him a hero, and he would cost you 4 threat.
4 threat.
Because he's 2 willpower and 2 hit points. So 4 threat hero off the bat's pretty good. And then you could attach Thorongil to him, making him the abilities of Lord Pippin.
With the sphere match too. With the
sphere match. So then you would engage it. So then all your enemies get +3 engagement, assuming you're running 3 hobbits. If you're just running him, right? It's just +1. And then he would ready himself, assuming the engagement was higher, and you would draw a card for the Lord Pippin ability. That's melding everything all together.
Wow.
It's great. Yeah, and you really only have to do that. You're really only waiting for 1 card. You're just waiting for Thorongil, because this guy's going to start on the table as a hero. Just saying. You got to think. I've never done that, but now I want to try it.
Yeah, because that would give you a really low threat hobbit anyways, which feeds into that hobbit thing. Like when you build a hobbit deck, I've written about this. I haven't published the blog, but I want to, about building a hobbit deck. It's like the only thing that you really have to lean into with hobbits, or not have to, but the only thing that you have to lean into really is that low threat thing. Mm-hmm. There's some other things that hobbits do. They ready, and there's some secrecy things, and there's, but really I think the thing that you really have to lean into when building a hobbit deck is the low engagement cost, and engagement cost higher than the enemy's threat, and those sorts of things. So, so making this guy a Messenger of the King hero or Sword Thane is definitely legit. Now, Messenger of the King is nice because you start with that, but Sword Thane is nice because, it's not going to replace like Sword Thaning Rosy Cotton.
Sure.
But it could be an alternative. One of the things about combos, and we've said this all along, is that, like having options with your combos. If your option is Sword Thane Rosy, and you haven't gotten into your Rosy yet because of a bad card draw, whatever, like Sword Thane Pippin is not necessarily a horrible option, right?
No, because you could then equip him with like Dagger of Westernies, right? Because he becomes a hero. There's some reasons you could give him. You could even give him like Fast Hitch. Actually, well, that goes on characters.
That goes on characters. Anyways.
It goes on. So okay. So anyway, but there's a couple of attachments. I was thinking the dagger primarily because that could boost his attack by 2 more, and then he's questing for 2, readying, attacking for 4. Plus you get the resource. So and he would trigger a couple other effects he would synergize with. So yeah, he fits into the Hobbit archetype, and I'm really thinking of a deck lineup that might be something like Falco, Messenger of the King, Tactics Pippin, and then Sam.
Right.
And then your threat is somewhere around the 16 mark.
Sam is
like
8,
that.
And Pippin is 4. That's
Pippin
12.
4,
and then Falco is 7 minus 3.
Minus 3.
So 7. That's another 4.
Yeah.
So that's 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gives you 4 rounds in secrecy.
Right.
You can get out your timely aids. You can get, you have enough
resourceful
things that help accelerate secrecy decks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, and we talk about this guy, but on his own merits, just playing him as an ally.
I can make some comments on that. Yes.
I was going to say, I think that he's great in a Hobbit deck, and I think he's okay in other decks, right? I think if you're playing into that Hobbit thing, this, Pippin has to go in unless you're playing the hero. I just think that if you're doing that Hobbit thing, Pippin's in there. But does he go into a Gondor deck? Nah, because you're not necessarily worried about threat as much. Like Pippin's strength comes in that he gets to ready and then attack back something for 2, which he's not going to do all by himself, but he's going to add to that attack. So if you're going to exhaust Pippin and then, engage something and then ready him, that gives you an extra 2 attack that you wouldn't normally have had in the combat phase to use someplace. And that's where he becomes clutch in a Hobbit deck, but not so much in other decks that are built for attacking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ted.
So to do that point, if you're just running, if you look at him as just a tactics ally, he's basically just 2 willpower, 2 hit points, which is still pretty good.
Right, yeah.
In that sphere.
Yep.
You can even play Hero Hirgon, who lets you reduce the cost of playing tactics allies when he quests, and you can play Pippin for 1. And that's pretty good just by his own self. He's a unique hobbit, so he gives you access to. He would give you an extra card for Drinking Song.
Hey.
So just by himself, and then he might be like an occasional trigger, right? Depending on your starting threat, because sometimes depending on the scenario, there are enemies that are just high threat. There's enemies that are 40, 45 threat. And so if you play him, if you just happen to draw him early game, he might be pulling that double duty by getting the quest and attack, just depending on the scenario. So I'd say in a Hobbit deck, he's pretty strong because he's for sure using both stats. And outside of that, he's still pretty good. And I tend to just include like 1 copy of him because he's unique. So second copy of him is not going to do you much unless you jump block with him or something. But he can soak a point of archery, or he can take a damage from questing and still hang around for a little while. And 2 willpower and tactics is really nothing to sneeze at. So I just think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, I don't know,
he does contend with his lore version. Like, that's the thing.
Well, and that's, I mean, right. So, like, it's more of a decision to pick which Pippin, but once you decide not to play the lore version of Pippin as the lore hero, then does he become an auto-include in Hobbit decks? I think he's almost about as much of a auto-include in those Hobbit decks, if you're not including lore Pippin, as anything. But then his general use comes into play. Like, is he good for a Fellowship deck? Yep. He's good for a Fellowship deck.
I was going to comment, in a Fellowship deck, he really, really pulls his weight, because if he's one of your 9 characters, he's questing for 3, because he gets +1 to all his stats when you flip your contract, and then he gets to ready and then attack for 3 if you get to trigger his ability.
Right.
So he's pretty good in a Fellowship contract deck too.
He's pretty good as long as you can keep your threat low.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like, how many? So then do you combine the Fellowship contract with the Hobbit contract, with a Hobbit deck? No, there's no Hobbit contract.
Okay.
But you know what I'm saying. Sorry,
Friendship is almost a Hobbit.
It is almost. It's designed to be. How far do you lean into that before you're like, oh, you're not getting this? There comes a point where you're just like, you're building decks because they're fun to build, which is fine, but they're not really functional at some point. I don't know. There's probably a Fellowship Hobbit deck out there that's pretty good.
Oh, certainly.
I would guess from a design standpoint, like if I were to jump into the mind of Caleb Grace or MJ Newman, I would say like Pippin was probably designed so that you could have multiple versions of the 9 walkers for the Fellowship contract. So that way you didn't have to use a version of the hero, so that you could pick and choose, which heroes, which allies you wanted. So for that, I appreciate this card in and of itself, like just based on that, because it provides you a deck building choice to make.
Yep.
So, because
absolutely.
I mean, you're not playing Spirit Pippin at all, right?
Well, just you wait. He's really fun, especially in multiplayer.
Who's Spirit Pippin?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that episode, if we haven't already, have we already done it?
We have not done Spirit Pippin.
Oh, we'll get to it.
Yeah, maybe last. Everybody, in Card Talk has ended because we've gotten to Spirit Pippin. We're like, okay, everybody, welcome to our Spirit Pippin show.
Yeah. What do you think about? Well, what do you think about his artwork?
His art. I actually really like his artwork. This shows the going to battle as a Rohan.
Or he's got the Gondor. He's the one that he went to Gondor, right? He's like the Esquire of Gondor.
Pippin is the Gondor one. I always get those two mixed up.
I get mixed up too, but then I looked at the artwork. You can actually see.
Can you see that
you can see a little peek through?
Oh yeah, of the tree of Gondor.
Of the tree. So he's wearing his like citadel armory.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I love this shows that aspect of Pippin, right? And so it's kind of in contrast to Tactics Mary, which is the Mary coming and killing the Witch King, that version of Mary, in the Battle of Pelennor Field, and then so this is the Pippin version of that time, and so I like that. So I think, and I love that it's like you can see the detail on the face. I will say that it's funny because the show's been going on for 5 years now or whatever, and so I wouldn't have said this early on in the show's run, but I'll say it now. Like, you can tell that the artwork was inspired by the movie, and that's a little frustrating. Like, it looks like movie Pippin, right? Like
a little bit, yeah. Not as much as Tactics Mary.
Right. Yeah. No. Totally. Right. But
which is like a clone.
Right.
Yeah. I probably like his lore arts a little better as far as originality. And yeah, this one looks a little movie inspired, but I think it still looks pretty good. I'm still pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, do you think that this represents who Pippin was in the literature?
Yes. Sure. Sure.
Okay, great. We'll move on. Yeah.
I can't get over his quote. Down on your knees in the road and ask pardon, or I will set this troll's bane upon you. From Return of the King. And I don't actually know enough or recall who said that, or if it was him. I do not remember, and someone is yelling like, yes, that was Pippin, and they're like, that was blah, blah, blah. But I just keep reading this like sub
Ted.
Anyway, I think the card is great, and let's move on and ring this card.
Should we ring this card?
I think so.
I was just going to say the only thing that I'm a little hesitant about the artwork is the sword looks kind of translucent.
Oh, because it has that light trying to reflect off it?
The light that's kind of shining through it, and then it looks like, I don't know, the way that they drew the reflections of it. But, if that's the only thing that I have a problem with, then this is probably a pretty good card, right? Pretty good artwork.
Yeah, now that you say that, I can't unsee it, so thanks.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for ruining the card artwork for me forever.
Right. With Pippin's hair blowing in the breeze.
Yeah, majestically, man.
He's ready. He's ready to defend.
He's gonna set the
Minas Tirith
Troll's Bane on you.
Right.
Or someone.
He's gonna get down on his knees.
Someone is.
Someone is. The person. I think that. This is. Somebody will make a comment. A couple episodes ago, we were talking about Curious Brandy Buck, and somebody was saying that this came from this particular part of the second, not the second book, but this is where
the second,
it came from the Two Towers, which is not
Okay.
the second book, but is the third and fourth book. Like, I don't know, whatever. But the point is that
Right.
somebody's like, the Brandy Bucks are the most curious. So somebody had referenced and told us where the reference for Curious Brandy Buck came from.
Okay.
So I'm sure somebody will tell us that.
We love that kind of stuff. So send us emails. Yeah, comment on the video. Right. We love that.
Right.
Love that kind of stuff. Like, just in case there are some things that I don't happen to know, which this is one of them.
Right.
It's good to share.
Yeah.
Okay. So David, tell us about this highly scientific yet arbitrary system we have.
It is highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, Ted. And the one card to rule them all is rated a 1. It's the card that it's one of the best in the game. And then the card that's ranked 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it came, because it's just not very good at all. So, Ted, how would you rank Pippin?
Pippin. I would pipe him in at probably a 4 because he has got some general use in tactics decks to just give you a little bit of willpower. And it makes a difference when you are a tactics deck and the expectation for you to have willpower is low on the, if you're playing multiplayer and then you're like, oh, hey, 2 willpower, like it adds up. You throw a couple of characters out like that on the table, and now you're questing for 2, 4, 6. It makes a difference, right? You'll help burst through a location or something if you're taking in that willpower and still have a strong combat presence. And if it's great into the Hobbit archetype, but general use, I still think he's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just not going to be as kind, which is weird for me to not be as kind to the hobbits as you are. I was going to give this guy a 5 because I think that it's just really tough to choose which Pippin to use, and I think that when I'm talking about inspiration for a deck, lore Pippin probably wins out, like 53% of the time, and so then it's like, oh, but if I don't use lore Pippin, I can use tactics Pippin, and then I can, maybe go here. And so there's some inspiration for this version of Pippin, especially because he has like readying built in, and that is helpful with the hobbits. You get 2 uses without a unexpected courage, without a valiant sacrifice, or not a valiant sacrifice, without a valiant determination, without an unexpected courage. And so to get 2 uses out of a character, obviously conditionally, but still, I think that there's still some use there. And I don't know if he's that general use in a tactics deck. I think there's other tactics heroes or other tactics characters you're picking over tactics Pippin. So with all of that said, I think that 5 is about the best I can give this guy, although I do love him in a Hobbit deck. So if we were rating him in a Hobbit deck, I'd probably give him like a 2. But
yeah,
that's not what we do here.
I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
Okay, well, everybody, that's our show on Tactics Pippin, and you should join us again next week as we talk about more cards in the game and hopefully inspire a little bit of deck building. And everybody, have a great day.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.